Hello and welcome back to the MyClayCo studio. My name is Carla and today we're going to get into making 3D flowers. Everything you've wanted to know about how to make beautiful looking florals, and we're going to do it in 3 different ways. Let's get into it. Now, of course, there are numerous ways to make flowers. I'm just going to be going through 3 simple ones today, and they're the ones that I first started to make when I finally got my hands on the tools required to make really good florals. So we're going to go through the tools now, because there are a couple that are pretty necessary to make really good looking florals. The first tool that's really necessary is ball tools. So you've probably seen these before. They're actually used a lot in fondant making, and of course we've gotten them over into the polymer clay world. These are really good for shaping your flower petals. They're metal, so the polymer clay doesn't stick to them, and they're exactly as they're described, ball tools. So they'll be really good at getting those circular motions needed to push that clay into petal shapes. There isn't really an alternative for these. I've racked my brains trying to think of a home alternative that you could use, but there's nothing really that can replace a ball tool. And when I say it's going to level up your 3D flower making game, I mean it. As soon as I got these, I instantly could make flowers. So I'll show you today what I mean. They're kind of the most magic tool when it comes to floral making. The next tool that you'll need for flower making is a foam mat. It's a really firm piece of foam. You could probably use a camping rollout, or if you have an untextured yoga mat, they'd probably work for a texture. Pretty much you just don't want a solid surface. If you have a solid surface, when you're applying pressure with your ball tool to your clay, you don't want all that pressure to go into your clay and squish it between your surface and the ball tool. That's why the foam will take that pressure that you're applying with the ball tool, and it's perfect for making those flowers. Another alternative is actually creating them on your hand. It is the perfect texture and squishiness, I guess. The only thing is, if you run hot like I do, it can actually affect your clay. So if you're trying to create really delicate flower petals, it's going to start heating up a little bit too much on your hands, and it can make it difficult to work with. But if you're just starting out, you can 100% just use the palm of your hand as that softer surface. The next 2 tools are nice to haves. You've got a needle tool and dotting and shaping tools. Exactly how you would think they would be used. The needle tool is great for placing your flower petals to create those flowers, and the dotting and shaping tool, so you can press your flowers in and shape their petals. The last tool that you'll need is a way to cut out your petal shapes. So you can just roll out your clay into a log and make slices. This is the way that requires the least amount of tools. However, you're not going to really get consistent petals. So that's definitely good to start out with. Once you've moved on from that though, I would say using something like a micro circle cutter tool to get those nice uniform circles, or if you're batch creating, you want to get multi-cutters. So multi-cutters are cutters that have, say, 6 petals on it, so you can cut out a lot of petals at a time. They're great for if you're making a lot of flowers. If you're doing a floral slab, you'll want to get yourself some multi-cutters. But in the beginning, if you're just learning how to make flowers, you can 100% roll them out into a log, slice them, or you can do what I'm doing today and use a circle cutter tool. The first flower I'm going to be showing you is a layered floral. So this is multiple petals in different sizes, layered on top of each other directly onto a piece of clay. To show you how to do these best, I'm going to get my handy dandy piece of paper and a pen. So imagine this is your ball tool. Our first one that we're going to do is going to be a circular motion. So we're going to be applying downward pressure evenly and moving around in a spiral motion. And you can keep repeating that spiral motion as we go to make sure that we're moving from the inside out and that pressure's going down. So much like anything, it's all practice. So the more that you practice this, the better you're going to be at it. So I would suggest when you're first starting out, cut out a bunch of circles and just roll. You want to make sure that you're really working out what pressure works for your petals, what sizes you want them, the motions. As I said, we're doing a circular motion with this one. I've got a ball tool that is kind of the same size as that piece of clay, my largest piece of clay, but you work out what works best for you. So at the moment, I'm just going to apply even pressure in that circular motion. I'm moving from the inside to the outside. Now I apply a little bit more pressure once I get to the outside to really make sure that I've got a really thin, delicate edge to my petal. And the more pressure you apply, the more it's going to cup. So if you want it flatter, then you can just slowly do it and apply a little less pressure. And there we go, there's our first one. So we're just going to do it with our other two. You want to make sure that, because these are going to be layered on top of each other, you want to make sure that there's a differentiation of sizes. You don't want your clay pieces to be too similar in size to one another, because then you're not going to be able to see the difference in the petals. They're going to be too similar. Alrighty, so I've got 3 different petals, and I think the sizes should be okay. I think this one I might just make a little bit bigger. But the good thing about this is once I'm layering them on, I'll be able to see if I need to adjust these petals at all. And then once you've got your petals, you can then create numerous of the same size if you're making a floral slab or multiple flowers. So I'm just going to grab my dotting shaping tool. You can do this with the smallest of your ball tools. I just like to do it with this one because it's a little bit smaller. And we're just going to grab it by pressing lightly in the middle. We don't want too much pressure. And I'm going to line it up here and just press. When I press down, I twist a little bit and that helps it release. So I grab this one. Yeah, you can see here, if I put it that way, you might not be able to see the differentiation because it's slightly oval shaped. So I'm going to go this way with this one. Press it in. And then my last petal goes in. Alrighty, this is the stage I'm now going to get my needle tool. Turn up these edges. You can also do this with the sculpting tool, that silicone edge, if you're worried that the needle tool might be too pokey. But I find the needle tool has such a fine point, it's easier to get under those edges. And all I'm doing is I'm just very randomly curving in my petals just to give them a little bit more of an organic look. And this is completely up to you how you want to do it. And there we go. So we've got a little flower. So all we have to do is put the center dot in. I'm alternating pink and yellow. So my pink flowers have yellow centers and my yellow flowers have pink centers. All right, next up we're going to be creating a more standard flower. It's going to be a larger standalone flower so that you can make it as a pair of stud earrings, or you can have them for larger dangles. So the motion that we're going to do on this one is similar to the spiral. It's just that we're going to start down the bottom and we're going to be applying our pressure upwards. So that's going to be elongating our circle, and we're just going to be making this kind of motion as we move up. So you can see it's a little bit more egg shape. So that is going to create a more rounded petal shape rather than a circular shape, which we form later. So I'm going to get into this one. So I've got my little circles here. I'm going to be using a slightly smaller ball tool. You can see that it's a little bit smaller than what the actual petal sizes are, and that's because I really want to try and get inside the petal as I'm moving my ball tool. So this one is going to be angled, so as I said, starting from the bottom, and we're just moving up in those more rounded motions to try and create that oval petal shape. It will still be circular because we're working with circles. I'm just trying to move it to get more of an oval. As you can see here, the edges are really, really thin and delicate, so you can actually maneuver them more into that kind of oval petal shape. So the easy way to get that oval petal shape is you then pinch the bottom. So that, if I get my needle tool, is very much a more standard petal shape if I'm making larger flowers. So I'm going to do the rest of these ones and then we can put them together into a flower. So I'm going to put this together directly onto a post so that we can have this as a statement stud. The way that I'm going to use the post is I'm actually going to embed. So my post and this micro circle cutter tool fit perfectly. So I'm just going to cut out 2 of these. And all I'm going to do is thread the center through. So I've got it on the back. And you can see it fits perfectly on that one. And then I'm going to take my other one and I'm just going to put it on top. And then I just go around and sandwich those together. Make sure that there's no post showing and smooth it round. And that is an embedded post. So the good thing about having one of these foam mats is that they've got these holes that you can actually fit this in. So while I'm working, I can just sit it in there. If you didn't have that, you could just poke a hole in a piece of styrofoam, something else soft that you can put holes in, because it's not going to bake on this, it's just going to sit on this while we're putting them together. So I take my needle tool, and because we've pinched all of these, all I want to do is press into that center part, and we're just going to be placing it down. Okay, so I have my flower. I'm just going to press in the center a little bit just to make sure it's nice and flat, because now I'm just going to put the center detailing in, which I'm just going to use my needle tool, which you could always use a toothpick if you don't have a needle tool at home. I just find the needle tool is super handy to have, so whatever you can find will be perfect. All I'm doing is I'm just scraping up little bits of clay, because then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to attach them into the center. And this is all personal preference and eyeballing to see how you want it to look. It's unbaked clay on unbaked clay, so it will adhere to each other during baking, so we don't have to worry about putting down any liquid clay. If you do get any flyaway pieces, we can just clean that up after. Yeah, it's a very quick and easy way to mimic that kind of pollen effect from the center of flowers. This is also how I create moss, fun fact. If I'm making little mushrooms. And there we go. Okay, so I've got all of that in there. I'm just going to fish out this random bit of yellow. And there we go. Okay, the last one we're going to do is similar to the previous flower, but what we're going to do is we're going to create some texture on the petal. So we're actually going to do almost like 3 arch shapes, and we're going to move over those until we get the shape that we want, and then we're going to elongate the bottom of the petal by applying that pressure and pulling downwards. So that's the general idea. Let's get into it. Okay, I've got my little clay pieces. I actually used a slightly larger microcircle cutter tool on this because I want these to be for dangles. So I've got 6. I think I might only use 5. We'll just see how we go. I'm going to use a slightly smaller, so this is the smallest of the ball tools, because I do want to really make sure that I've got pronounced texture on these ones. So I'm going to go up the center first. Again, just that pressure going up. I'm going to do that around the sides too. You can already see here how I'm starting to get that kind of tri effect. So now I'm just going to flip it and use the slightly larger one. Now that I've got the texture, and I'm just going to flatten those edges so that I've got some nice delicate edges for this petal. And then this is where I'm going to flip it back and we're going to pull down. And this is just creating that point down the bottom. You just want to make sure that you've got that kind of texture on your petal. And then we're going to do the same as the last one. We're going to pinch the bottom. And that is our first petal. All right, I'm going to make the rest of them and then we'll come back. Okay, so I've got my petals done. I'm just going to grab my needle tool and I'm going to attach these petals to each other one at a time because we want to make sure that we have a nice looking back for these dangles. So I'm just going to pick up the petals, and when I'm overlapping them, I want to make sure that it's kind of going in a spiral, so one overlaps the other, and we'll just do that for all of our petals. Okay, so I've got 2 attached, that's the hardest part, and now to go in with all of the others. For the center of this one, I'm actually going to use caviar beads today. Caviar beads are just little metal balls that you can attach using liquid clay or bacon bond. An alternative to caviar beads is just rolling up little balls of clay and putting them in a mica powder. You can leave them as they are, just one color. I do like the shimmer that the mica powder gives to them, but yes, caviar beads today, and we're just going to pop them in the center. You want to make sure with caviar beads that you're very careful. They will want to spill everywhere. I just gently press them with my finger. You can use tweezers though to move them to the center of your piece. So in the middle we need to put liquid clay. We'll stress the importance of using a clear liquid clay. Otherwise, if you use white, you will be able to see white between your flower and the caviar beads. And also, it doesn't matter if you're using the same color as your clay, it's still going to show on those caviar beads. So always best just to use a clear liquid clay on these ones. And just moving our caviar beads over onto that liquid clay. It doesn't really matter with caviar beads for my design, so I'm just kind of haphazardly popping some caviar beads on. I'll do a couple different sizes of caviar beads, basically just to cover that center so it looks like the center of a flower. And that was 3 different ways to make polymer clay flowers for your creations. If you found the video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.